Welcome to the ABCs of Preschool. My name is Miss Amber. Thank you for being here today. This week, we're going to talk about being your child's advocate. And this is such an important part of parenting. And it's a hard job. We want the very best for each of our children. And sometimes we start off in a situation, let's talk education, for example, of thinking we're doing the best for our child, putting him in the best school that everybody wants to get to. But sometimes the popular school that everybody's getting to and wants in may not be the best school for your child. We have to be our child's own advocate. When they're little, they just do not have a voice. And I'm really passionate about this subject because with my own 4 kids, I've seen each of their journey in school and in education, and I've seen 2 of them really struggle. And to be honest, I get a little emotional that I needed to be more of an advocate for my kids who are struggling in traditional school. We're advocates when our kids are sick. If they need medical care, we're right there. We want to get them treated, we want to get them medicine. If they're not feeling good, we advocate for our children. I think today I want to talk about advocating for them in education. I've been doing a lot of other podcasts as a guest host, and the topic of the box education that our whole society, the UK, I just did an interview with a mom in the UK. What we've created as education for our children does not serve all of our children in the best capacity. So this episode is really going to focus on being your child's advocate in the sense of education. And what does that look like? You may have found the preschool. You found the right program. Everybody's lined up outside. We know the world of preschool. I know this. I've been owning preschool since I was 23, so I understand when it's registration time. A lot of times we have a giant line. We have a very strict process of how we enroll families and kids. It's very diplomatic. It's very like you first come, first serve. So let's imagine, in society today, I don't know where you're living, but sometimes it's really hard to get into the preschool and all your friends are going there. Or it might be an elementary school that in your community, it is just the school, like, right? Everybody wants to be there. As a parent, as a moms, as dads, we have to think about and we have to be an advocate for our child. And we have to look at our own individual child. Will they succeed at the school? Will my child thrive? Or are they going to struggle and be stressed out for their learning career? And that has been a really big mistake for me. And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about this topic of being your child's advocate in their educational journey. And it might even start with preschool. So every child learns differently, just as all of us adults learn differently. And what one school may have worked for maybe your oldest child or your middle child may not work for your younger child. And it's going to throw a kink into things. You may think, well, I don't have the time to drive to this school, to that school. I just don't have the time. Or this elementary school is just right around the corner and I just need to send them there. And I hear you. I get it. I really get it. But imagine if you start seeing your child struggling, falling behind, totally stressed out, I think that's when we have to pause as parents and reevaluate. And that was a mistake that I made. I have 4 kids. I've talked about them a lot. 2 of my 4 kids were fine in the traditional box type of schooling. When I say box, I really mean a box kind of schooling, and that's where I get passionate. Our education system, when our children leave preschool and head into elementary school, public school, or even public school preschool, it is a box. It is a box. And it could even be early childhood education because, there's Waldorf school, there's Montessori school, there's just a play-based type of schooling, there's just highly academic schools. So, and even my own program is sort of a box, right? I mean, I try to, we provide all different modalities of learning. I try to break free from the box. I don't want to be a box. So when people come and tour, oh, are you Montessori based? Are you just Waldorf based? I say, no, I'm all of it based because all of the philosophies are awesome. And every student that comes through my door learns differently. So I've really worked hard on my own educational program, my own learning centers to break free from the box. But sometimes not every child thrives in my program. It's been very rare. I think maybe after 23 years, it's maybe been 6 kids that I've had to have leave the program. But being your child's advocate means not putting them in an environment because it's the thing to do. And the thing to do for years has been our educational system and public school system. And let me tell you what happens when kids learn differently than the box that's set up for them. They go through their educational journey feeling as though they're a failure and feeling that they don't belong because they don't fit in the box. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. If your child doesn't thrive in Montessori, why are they in Montessori? If your child is not thriving in the public school system and falling way behind, why are they there? It was one of my biggest mistakes. When I started seeing that 2 of my kids were struggling in traditional public school, I was so active in that school. I was a volunteer. I did all the auctions. My 2 oldest were there. Like all my kids were there. I love the teachers. I love the staff. I love that it was in our town. Like I was such an advocate of this school, this public charter school. I would tell my own preschool families, this is an amazing school until one of my kids were struggling so bad. Until I had the proof that my child was so far behind in school because of state testing, and that I said, we have to change things up. My child needs to not keep progressing to the next grade level and falling farther behind. Not until I was sat down with a team from this school telling me how horribly wrong it was to have my child be held back. That wasn't the right thing to do, but just to keep her in the box in traditional school and just have her get lost in the system. We have tutors going on. We had her in IEP. My child was in IEP and tutors. The amount of stress and anxiety my child was under was horrific. So as my child's advocate, I yanked her in 4th grade and I put her into a small school. And unfortunately, she was bounced around to a few schools until we found a good fit. I wish, looking back, that 2 of my kids were just removed quicker, and I wish I would have homeschooled them. Back then, I think I had such an idea of homeschool as, like, antisocial or I don't know, but we are supposed to be our kids' advocates, and if they're not getting their needs served well, if they're falling behind, if they're stressing out and have anxiety, why? Why put them in a box? If I could go back, I would have ripped them out of that box so freaking fast. It does not serve every child well, and I get angry thinking about it. Our public schools today fail so many kids, and it bothers me. If our children are not the typical that um, fit in the box learning and that they can keep up with the pace, then good for them. They're going to survive well and they're going to thrive. If your children and my children do not fit in that box, they're going to suffer. And it's wrong. It's wrong. I don't know how to fix it. But I think taking an honest look at our environment and our schooling choice for our children is so vital. We have to think about the choice. Where will they thrive the most? My child had panic attacks, anxiety attacks for years in public school. Now, I did beg two of my kids to leave traditional schools and to be homeschooled. I begged them to do that. I don't know if it's the pressure they felt or whatever. I also believe our children have choices. They did not want to leave traditional school. I don't know if it's because their older siblings graduated and went to this school or whatever it was. But as a mother, to watch my kids suffer and have such anxiety in an education system that's supposed to meet all of our kids' needs is horrific. It's heartbreaking. It makes me want to cry right now. So, encouraging you today, I know I'm fired up because all of our children deserve an education and deserve an education that serves them well, that encourages them, that lifts them up, that breaks free from a box, that goes at the pace that they need to be gone through. And unfortunately, when you have a class of 30 and you've got state testing, you've just got to go, go, go. And if they get lost in the shuffle, oh well, that's what happens. And so now it's so funny because most of my kids are all adults now. And it's hilarious because they're all talking about homeschooling their kids. And I want to encourage you today. It's okay to take that leap. Take the leap. If that school that you love, that school that you've been volunteering at, that school that your other kids have gone to, I don't know what it is, that school that you thought was the it school, but your kids are struggling, have the courage to be their advocate and change it up. Pull them. They're resilient and there is going to be a better fit because it is not worth our kids to go from kindergarten through high school having panic attacks and stress and feeling like they are a failure because they don't fit in this box that our society has told them to fit in. When kids learn so differently, maybe they need to be outside more. Maybe they need to be with animals. Maybe they need a classroom of 5 and not 30. Maybe they need to be homeschooled so you can go travel the world or go on road trips, and they need to be outside learning science hands on. I just want to encourage you because if it's a medical need, we're all advocates for our kids. We want them to have the best medical care. I think we need to think of education as the same way. We want our kids to have the best learning environment possible that meets their specific needs. And like I said, I wish I could go back. I mean, I did my part a lot of encouraging and offering different learning styles. I think my kids were too far in the system and too scared to jump out. So if you see them struggling early on, this is my encouragement to you. If you see your child struggling early on, I mean kindergarten and first grade, and you see them struggling, yank them. Don't be scared to yank them. Don't be scared. It's probably going to be the best thing you'll ever do. We have to be our kids' advocate. If you see them with anxiety and stress, go see a therapist. Like, I'm an advocate of being an advocate for our children. We are their voice for years, right? We are their voice. And so we have to stand up for them. I had to stand up in that meeting. That school knew me so well. I gave so much of my heart and love to that school that my kids were in. They were counting on, I think it was 10 years we were involved with this one school. But when they sat down with a team to question me and my parenting and my needs for my daughter, because I was being an advocate for her. I was saying she cannot keep getting lost anymore. We have to stop this cycle of moving her forward. They were literally giving her pluses, even though she was a year and a half behind in school. But on her report card, because the testing scores are so important for schools these days, they were giving her scores that she wasn't deserving of. It was a delusion. And so she was getting farther and farther behind. And that's when I had to say, enough is enough. I had to walk away. And that's when it really changed. The whole education, looking at the traditional education to me really changed. And it gets me really fired up because too many kids are getting lost in the system. So it's okay to pull them early on. Be your child's advocate. You know them best. You know how they learn the best. Some kids thrive in a class of 30 because they're so social. Some kids can't stand it because they're so shy. We want to push our kids, but we also need to meet them where they're at and recognize where they're struggling and be their advocate and help them. And it's just something that I'll always live with, that I wish we switched up so much sooner, especially being your advocate in education. Just because that school is the popular school for 20 other families does not mean it's the right school for you and your child. It's just as simple as that. And as much as scary it is to homeschool or to yank your child for an environment that you've known for so long and friends and families and teachers that you love so much, I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it. You know, my daughter was in traditional high school until up to this year, and she's almost 18. We finally got her into a smaller school, branch off of the traditional school, and it has been extraordinary for her. 30 kids in the school, 2 amazing teachers. I mean, phenomenal, where she can text them and she calls them on a personal name. They're teaching her how to job search, how to budget, like all this real life stuff. It is extraordinary. You just got to look, got to do the homework and look. And there's some really amazing programs that meet the needs of all children, whether this preschool, elementary, or high school. We must be our educational advocate for our children, because nothing is worse than seeing your child struggle day in and day out in traditional school. Like, it breaks your heart. And why? 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 Because you can say they went to this special school? Who cares if your child is suffering inside? It doesn't matter the name of the school. It doesn't matter the program if they're suffering. Let's be the change, make the change, and be their advocate and get them into an environment, an educational environment where they're going to thrive. Thank you so much for joining me today on the ABCs of Preschool. Wishing you just a beautiful week. And thank you for listening. You can visit me at thelovingstartway.com. And remember to wish it, dream it, do it.